Hi, and welcome to the third of our 5 seminars this week. The feedback in the first 2 has been really good, and certainly there have been really interesting insights into the full potential of what we can do with this digital platform which we currently have. Today I'm really happy to say we've got 2 great speakers, Mark Cawley from Eircom and Dennis Murphy Wispo. Many of you here will know Dennis, and some of you will know Mark. Mark, I commented to Mark who heard one of his talks at a CBI presentation not that long ago, and it was one of the first times I'd heard somebody talking about the cloud where it actually A, made sense, and B, was technically correct, which in the area of the cloud can sometimes be quite rare. Dennis has got extensive business experience, and Dennis is going to be looking at this very much from the point of view of, so what does it actually mean for business? Now, those of you who know Dennis know he's focused on business. It's where's the money, where's the advantage, how can you actually make this a success? And is one of the people up here in the north who has developed and created very, very successful businesses. So I think there'll be lots of useful insight there, lots of opportunity for questions. Both Mark and Dennis will be happy to take robust questions at the end of the session. Cloud technology has been identified as one of the big things. After 30 years in the IT business, I have learned to look upon the big thing or the next big thing with cautious eyes. This has got a sound technical base behind it. It's built on good technology. It's come of age now because the idea is not new. It's come of age now because fundamentally the network now works. For many years, we had a network which worked reasonably well, but for high-speed distributed web service and data communication and so forth, you needed to make specialist investment. The benefits which were there to the large corporations in the past are here for us now, and I'm going to hand over to Mark, who's going to start to tell us how we can start to realise these benefits in the year ahead and make Northern Ireland one of the really busy and profitable and excellent centres of activity in this area. Mark?
Thanks very much, Sinclair. Firstly, on behalf of Eircom, I'd like to welcome everybody. Eircom is delighted to be supporting the Digital NI 2020. As you may know, we're the sponsor of the week's event. In Northern Ireland, we've built a team whose sole purpose is about helping organisations to boost their businesses through the use of digital platforms. So, as a member of the Digital NI 2020 steering group, of course, we fully support the purpose and ambitions of the programme. Thanks, Sinclair, in terms of the introduction, and you haven't put a whole lot of pressure on me to come up with some content that will be of use to the audience here. So, if I just there we go, click on just to go through the agenda from my perspective. So Dennis is going to talk about making it real. I'm going to hopefully give you a bit of an overview of the environment, agree a common language between us as to what the different buzzwords that are out there are. I will try to avoid 3-letter acronyms where at all possible, but I'm afraid buzzwords are far too many in this one, so I can't avoid those. We'll talk very briefly about making the business case for the cloud. It'd be rude not to just give a quick overview of our cloud offers, and then we'll talk about some of our experiences and our learning in dealing with customers as they make that journey into the cloud. So to begin with, we'll talk about some of the definitions. So an organisation called NIST in the US has come up with this, which seems to be becoming the de facto definition for the cloud in the abstract, which is basically a computing capability that provides abstraction. I don't propose to read the slide for you, but in essence, those key buzzwords. It's convenient. It's accessible over the network. It's based upon shared resource tools that are rapidly provisioned and released. A private cloud is taking all of those advantages, but it's in essence it's deploying the cloud environment specifically for the use of one organization, either within their own premises, their own data centers, or of course it could be on a third-party premise. But ultimately, it means that the infrastructure sits behind the customer's behind their own firewall and is governed by their own operational and governance rules. The next one we talk about is a virtual private cloud, which is in essence it's taken dedicated resource tools off of larger public infrastructures and using them for the sole use of that organization. So it's I suppose it is carving off of a piece of a larger public cloud for the use of that single organization. As Sinclair said, in essence, we're not talking about a change in the what. You know, the technologies that we're talking about have been around and have been proven for quite some time. This is more about how we do it. The other quick definition then is the idea of a hybrid cloud. So organizations are happy to use the public cloud for some of their business applications. For those they see as being more sensitive, they want to keep them as private or internal clouds. And then you'll have a hybrid, and by the strict definition, a hybrid is just a combination or any combination of usage between the public and the private cloud platform. So there are three models now that you will see out there. The first is called infrastructure as a service, which is basically taking the computing resources and providing them out to people on demand. And the examples that Amazon Web Services, in essence, is the brand that most people globally will be familiar with. Eircom obviously offers an infrastructure as a service offer as well. Platform as a service is, rather than just talking about the hardware, the memory and the storage and the compute, it goes to the next layer. And in essence, it means providing a computing environment that people program into. So the examples of this are the Azure platform from Microsoft, and Salesforce.com has a platform called the Force.com. Google has many different many of the public cloud providers have this platform that people can program into. And in essence, they don't have to worry about the hardware. They don't have to worry about ideas of scale or load balancing or the complications that come with that. They just program their code and the platform looks after everything else underneath. So, and the final then is software as a service, and that's probably the environment that people will be most familiar with. And this is, where we rather than installing software on your computer or installing the back-end systems in your own environment, the whole thing is delivered as a service, typically by a web browser. And there are a number of examples there. And in fact, obviously, the WebEx service that we're using today is a great example of the cloud in action. So, as I say, the technology is not anything fundamentally new. It's not about the what anymore. It's about the how. And so, very quickly, what we mean when we talk about the cloud, what is the difference between a virtualization project and what actually makes it a cloud, and it's these building blocks here. So obviously we have to start off with the hardware, the computing power, the storage, and the memory underlying network. Then you have an abstraction layer, the ability to be able to virtualize the underlying hardware components and to present them farther up the stack as virtual servers. You need to have a level of automation. So those tasks and those functions which are done on a repeated basis, that can be scripted, that can be automated. Obviously, taking human beings out of the equation is an opportunity to make the thing quicker and cheaper, but it also removes the opportunity for human error. And so there's a lot of the idea of automation is fundamentally important in making the cloud a success. And then a level of integration and provisioning. the idea here is to be able to build a service where somebody can, like they would do with going to iTunes or going to the App Store, or these models that people are becoming more and more familiar with, that you can take these almost consumer models and deliver them back into your business through self-service portals. They're not always going to be about provisioning. It may be just about customer support or knowledge sharing or whatever, giving some insight into how the platform is performing. But ultimately, it means that it doesn't have to always mean having a human being in the middle, but people can help themselves the information that they need. There's clearly, regardless of what the model is, there's going to be a requirement for operations management and making a determination as to who is the most appropriate person to operate the platform. Is it going to be a service provider, or is it something that you're going to build for yourself? Reporting is very important as well. Whether it's in a public cloud, the ability to be able to report on utilization, being able to do a reconciliation between the actual usage of the platform and the bill that you will subsequently get from your service provider, or even in the private cloud context, where you deploy an infrastructure. In the past, the model was about as new projects came on, the project would have a business case, and part of the business case would be some capital, typically, to deploy an infrastructure. That's not the case anymore. This is now about you deploy a large you deploy a platform which is suitably large to take your projected applications, and then you charge back for the usage of that, either on a per business unit or on a per user basis. But the ability to be able to report and to get that insight into consumption and utilization is fundamentally what differentiates just a simple consolidation project from a true cloud. And service management, this idea of coming up with a service catalog and having a tightly integrated set of ISO processes that will tie the whole thing together from demand and capacity through to incident and problem management. And then regardless of whether you go whether you go for a public platform or a private platform, understanding the security and compliance environment within which you operate and making sure that you remain compliant is clearly of fundamental importance. So for the enterprises, and they're making a determination as to whether to go for the public or private options. Firstly, I'll talk about the public cloud. So the idea of consumption-based pricing obviously is very attractive. As I said, rather than having to make that investment, the upfront investment in capital, without having a really good handle on how utilization is going to be, or what the potential demand for services is going to be. That ability to be able to pay for things as you use it is clearly very attractive. Even if you take the example of a startup company, they're or a startup or a company who's growing quickly. That idea that you don't have to build out and size out the infrastructure from the outset. You can pay on a seat by seat basis as people grow into it. That's clearly very attractive. And clearly it is a very easy thing to use. And it's I suppose the drawbacks then, for certain people, the idea that their data is going to sit outside of their corporate firewall is a concern to them. And clearly there are some applications for which sitting on the public cloud is just not going to be appropriate at all based upon the data that's in there. But there are lots of applications where your data can quite comfortably sit in the public cloud. Either it isn't that sensitive in the first place, or it's anonymized. But it would be quite appropriate for that data to not have the same level of confidentiality or whatever that you may have for some of your more important intellectual property or copyrighted data. I talk about the lowest common denominator when it comes to functionality. Obviously, when you're building out a public cloud, like the global public cloud providers, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft, when they build out that platform, clearly they have to appeal to a wide mass market, and for that reason, you will tend to get not the same level of functionality as you will get for an on-premise enterprise deployment of similar software, because they just, in order to make it large and multi-tenanted, you end up. The whole idea is that you're not deploying specific software for specific customers. You want to be able to deploy once and certainly have a level of configuration, and that's important, that people, end users can get a customized feel of the environment. But that's about configuration of the one environment for their use, as opposed to deploying individual environments for the customer. It can be expensive for an enterprise to go into the public cloud, whether it's the cost of procurement, which is often underestimated, but also the cost of migration. Moving terabytes of data, if that's required from an on-site email system, for example, into a cloud. That simple migration can be expensive. People need to be cognizant of that when they're putting together their business plan. And then this final point is about transparency. For a lot of organizations, that you are only as good as the weakest link in the chain, or the weakest piece of infrastructure that the service provider has put in place. So a lot of these large cloud platforms, you're not going to see what's under the hood, and that would be a drawback for a lot of the customers that we talk to. They want to be able to be assured that the data sits in a particular jurisdiction, or ideally sits in a particular location, and also to know what the underlying system is. Is it compatible with investments that they have already made themselves in their own organization? The private cloud addresses a lot of the drawbacks of the public cloud. So, for instance, people who have a data concern, well, they can rest assured that the data sits behind their own firewall and is subject to their own corporate standards. The service level, the idea of being able to build that to suit the organization is also important. So again, public cloud vendors tend to have a lowest common denominator approach to service levels as well. I know particularly there's one organization I can think of where their service credit is, if you're not happy with you're on a 12-month contract. If you're not happy with the service, they'll give you an extra month. So instead of having 12 months of bad service, you get 13 months of bad service, which may not necessarily be the most enlightened approach. But ultimately, that flexibility to build a service level for your organization that is appropriate is important. The idea of it being customizable and flexible, again, it's all about making an environment which is good for your business, meets your business needs, and isn't just going to a cookie cutter approach. And then a clear support structure. This platform, if you go for a private cloud, clearly it is going to be provisioned, managed, and governed in the same way as the rest of the systems that you would have in place. But while you've addressed some of the drawbacks of the public cloud, you're also opening a few drawbacks of its own. The first one being around the initial investment. So again, you're going to have to write a check to buy that infrastructure, to put it into your own data center, and then there's the ongoing operational effort. So whether it's about development or design or integration effort at the outset, or the ongoing costs, very very rarely will organizations be able to get the economies of scale that are available from the larger service providers. So I'll talk briefly about deployment models now. So as I said earlier on, we come from a kind of a traditional world where software projects had a business case, and on the back of that, there was a line item in the budget that allowed for providing an infrastructure stack to support the application. So you had almost a one-to-one relationship between applications and the infrastructure that they sat on. And then with the first people dipping their toe into virtualization, it was primarily driven on the basis of consolidation, reducing the amount of physical servers into virtual servers. So that became, I'd say most organizations would have had a virtualization project to some extent. The clients that we speak to, though, would say that they would have about 30% of their systems virtualized, and there's still quite a long way to go. While maybe not, let's say 90 to 95% of organizations have virtualization programs in place, that they might be at around a 30% rate, and putting the pressure on to bring that figure higher is proving to be a challenge. But ultimately, it does deliver cost savings, better utilization, and simply a smaller footprint delivers its own benefits. Then we have this idea of the private cloud, which is taking virtualization to the next phase and truly making IT a service. And then the natural progression or extension of that is this idea of the public cloud, where you have real capacity on demand, and it has a global reach. So rather than just being a local system, rather than you being concerned about building high availability or data center resilience into your solution, that global provider, you make it their problem. So what we see in the market today, in the customers that we speak to, is that the vast majority of customers are in this I suppose the halfway house between the traditional IT approach and a certain level of virtualization. But then on the right, we're also seeing that there are a number of customers who are dabbling in public cloud. That could be to host websites or collaboration systems, or maybe their Salesforce management systems. But it is just it's dabbling, or they might be using them for proof of concepts, test developments, DR platforms. This is the typical profile. And when we ask them what their plans are over the next 18 months, it moves to a model more like this, where they are they're certainly adopting more and more of the private cloud approach, and moving from that traditional and virtualized into more of a private cloud approach to infrastructure. I should make that point. A lot of this is quite infrastructure centric as opposed to software. So the business case for the cloud, how is it going to deliver real value to our business? Well, this is on a few different levels. The economical, as I said already, you reduce capex, and as a result of doing that, you've reduced the associated maintenance costs and support costs. There's an ecological benefit, of course. Reduced footprint means less power and less cooling. And whilst it's good from a sustainability perspective, obviously it delivers its own cost savings as well. The idea of using the cloud gives you that notion of scalability, unlike the traditional approach to IT. So quite frequently you can subscribe to, particularly if it's software services, you can subscribe to them online. And as the note says here, from an infrastructure perspective, you're providing capacity in days, not weeks. And in fact, if your requirement is standard enough, you can quite often you can go to particular service providers with a credit card and get a server provisioned for you in a matter of minutes. That's as opposed to that traditional idea of placing an order with a hardware vendor and racking servers. This is clearly a much better way. Security. Quite often we see security as a concern customers express, where they are, as I say, they're conscious that the public cloud is a big unknown to them. Where they're going to put are they going to put their confidential data out there? But quite frequently, when you get into the conversation, a lot of customers, their own information security standards are not going to be as high as what is delivered in the cloud, or if it is, it does so at a much higher cost than we have for most organizations. So availability then, clearly the whole idea of the cloud is about building a highly available environment, and it provides a level of scale, a level of availability and complexity which really is just not achievable for most organizations, even the enterprises. The global scale, availability, and the ability to be able to switch over large application workloads from the west coast of the United States to the east coast of the United States, and then over to EMEA. That sort of scale, that sort of availability is just not achievable for most enterprises, certainly on this island. And of course, it's that idea of focusing on your core strengths. Why would I worry about patching servers or patching software when really I'm interested in making drugs or building houses? This next slide is one that I have taken from an Amazon document, which is basically it's addressing that idea of the cost of capacity. So the dotted line notionally provides the demand that you have predicted for this service. But in order to meet that demand, the blue lines mean that you have to make step change investments at regular periods in order to have the capacity there to meet that demand. But the downside of that obviously is that when you make an investment, you have excess capacity there, and there's a time lag between when you've made the investment and when it's actually being utilized to its fullest. And this is the thing that we call provisioning for peak. So in the traditional world, if you were an online retailer, for example, you had to build out infrastructure that would cope with the Christmas rush, or if you were selling flowers, that would cope with the Valentine's Day rush. Whatever the objective was to ensure that your customers had a good experience. If you were dropping connections or your site was running far too slowly, then people would just move on to the next site, to your competitors, and they would rarely come back. The effort to get them to come back was much higher. Whereas what the cloud allows us to do, if you see the red and orange lines, in essence, that ability to dynamically allocate resources to the platform means that you can flex. So when there are peaks in demand, you can turn up the dial and have the capacity there. But likewise, if there are dips or if the capacity drops off, you don't have to be paying for you don't have to pay for infrastructure that you're not using. That's a very compelling argument when we talk to people about the cloud. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to step over that slide there. But in essence, what it's talking about is making a comparison between that traditional approach of building out your data center infrastructure or taking it as a cloud. And as you see, it's quite a significant year one benefit. But the real benefits come from that idea of not provisioning for peak, using systems as you require them. Not want to labour the point, but ultimately the cloud is a managed service. So if you're looking to get it, as a steady state environment, so you're always going to use the same amount of capacity, and you're going to use it 24 hours a day, then perhaps the cloud isn't going to be the best approach for that. But we'll talk about that in a moment. This slide here is basically talking about how do you make the decisions as to what type of cloud to go for, how is it going to address your business concerns, how is it going to impact if I come from the IT organization, how is it going to change the way I provide services to my customers? And this slide here is basically just how to make the determination as to what workloads you should look to deploy in the public cloud and what ones would stay internally. And ultimately, it gets down to what type of data do you have and how what are you looking to do with it, right? So the public workloads, I don't propose to read them, but ultimately, if it's infrastructure centric, then it tends to work well in the public cloud. If it's about data and access to your own intellectual property, that's typically where the private cloud plays in stronger. Again, I will just drive over this very quickly. As I said earlier on, Eircom offers infrastructure as a service and software as a service offers. Our infrastructure service offering is called Instant Infrastructure, and it's based upon technology from the vendors that you see the logos for there. And that fundamental point that you grow as you need and you pay as you use is core to that. And again, apologies, I'm going to just skip over that one. The architecture of our service is not necessarily all that relevant. So when we talk to customers, there are a lot of there's a lot of views out there in terms of what how to put it, what the barriers to entry are, or what some people think it is the answer to everything, and some people think it is not worth considering for their business. So the first one that people think that it's just about hardware and software. Fundamentally, we think that it's about service. So that said, the technology isn't all that new. What is new is how it will be provided. So the ability for an organization, the IT organization, to in essence set themselves up as the service provider to the business, and the business being the consumer of those services, and then making a determination as to what services am I going to build myself within my own environment, and what ones am I going to deliver from the cloud. The other point is that people being of the view that virtualization and cloud computing are the same thing. Again, as I said, the enabling technology is virtualization, regardless of which virtualization vendor you take. But automation, service management, driving efficiencies of scale, they're really where the cloud comes into its own. And that the ability to do things to self-provision, to provide customers with the ability to remove a lot of the time lag and the design efforts with getting services turned up. That's very important. The cloud will always cost less. There are cost savings that will be delivered from utilizing the cloud, but if that's the only reason to explore the cloud, you may not always get the outcome you're looking for. As I was saying earlier on, if you have systems that are a constant load, 24 hours a day, 12 months of the year, then the cloud may not necessarily be the best place to host that service, because ultimately, it's similar to it's similar to the car rental market. We'll say if you wanted a car for 12 months, you wouldn't rent it, and that's the same thing here. Ultimately, these are multi-tenanted environments, and the commercial model is based on the fact that not everybody needs to have these systems 24 hours a day. Migrating to and between the clouds is easy. That is getting easier, to be honest with you, but the standards are still not agreed between the major vendors. So that the ability to take a virtual machine from your private infrastructure and push it out to the public cloud isn't fully there yet. It is on certain things. So for example, our platform is VMware based. If you have a VMware if you are a VMware user, you can move the machine between our site and yours. But there are some restrictions associated with that. But it is improving, but it's not just production ready yet, as I say. And that the cloud solves the problems about scalability and availability. These concerns that customers have are best addressed by looking under the hood and looking into the SLA. So, I suppose I'm just going to wrap up now with what we see as being the best practices. So we talk about future-proofing the cloud. So having a look at what your people need now, but thinking out 12 and 18 months, and pick a small project, learn from that, and build on it. Getting to know your users. There's a certain amount of a requirement to devolve authority into your end users or into super users, and on that basis, you need to know who they are, what level of access they're going to need, what level of access they're going to be comfortable with, and plan for that. Planning a service catalog. Ultimately, that idea of being able to build a shop window that allows your users to avail of the services and order them in an online fashion. The sooner you start that process, the sooner you'll be in a position to understand whether public, private, hybrid, all of these different types of clouds, what's the way to go, and evaluating your processes. A lot of the customers that we deal with, they would say, the cloud doesn't really lend itself to our procurement process, or it doesn't lend itself to their user access processes, whatever internal processes they may run. And the question that we ask is, well, does that mean that you don't go to the cloud, or does that mean it's time to perhaps evaluate? Have we been doing things the most efficient way up to now, or is there a better way? So, with that, I'll hand over to Dennis. These are our quick conclusions, and ultimately, I suppose I'll just pull out at the bottom one, which is that there are safety nets there. We have a lot of experience. There are lots of people in the industry who are eager to see this thing being a success, and we have a vested interest in making sure your businesses are successful using the cloud. Thanks very much for your time. I'll be here for any questions afterwards.
Good afternoon. My name is Dennis Murphy, and I'm chairman of an exciting new Northern Ireland company called Whisple. The genesis of Whisple, it came out of an innovation network that was funded by Invest NI, and is made up of companies like Eneco, my own company, Equinity ICS, Replify, Goldblatt McGuigan, and Navosco. Mark has outlined in a very articulate way all about cloud, but I suppose from a consumer perspective, the way we use computing has changed dramatically over the last time period. We all have great competency in Facebook and Twitter, and we expect this sort of service and interaction from the IT systems that we use. We want to be able to access our content and applications from smartphones, tablets, laptops, or desktops. And we want to have a similar experience in all those environments. Now, the cloud is very much a key part of delivering that type of experience. In other words, we want a utility service where we don't have to worry about the infrastructure, and Mark outlined the various options there. We don't have to want to worry about billing or maintenance. We want to use what we want when we want to use it, and we really only want to pay for what we use. Those of us that use business applications in the cloud, I suppose we don't really think of some of them as cloud services, particularly email's been a cloud service for a long time. The company that really put cloud on the map was Salesforce, a cloud-based CRM system, and I suppose is the poster child of business applications in the cloud. But you can see from this slide that there are a whole lot of other offerings here at different levels of the cloud stack. Mark went through the cloud stack. He talked about infrastructure as a service, where you have providers like Amazon. You've got Dropbox that provides storage as a service. You've got Microsoft Office in the cloud now. As well as the applications, particularly social media applications that we all use. Now, the next slide just talks a little bit about Whisple and what we propose to do. We're building a business-to-business app store where there will be a world of choice. And this is an example of a range of particular security software packages. These packages are sourced from the internet, and I suppose the interesting thing about it, because we're based here in Northern Ireland, if we wanted to access software from that's developed in California, it was a sort of hard thing to do. But with the internet, you'll be able to do that across the internet. You'll be able to access that software from business-to-business app stores like Whisple, and you never actually see a salesperson from that company. So I suppose, what does it mean for application developers and business? I suppose to start with application developers, I've been an entrepreneur for many years, and I remember when I started back in the early 90s, you had to buy servers, you had to spend a lot of money on expensive software like databases and development environments. The whole economics as an application developer has changed. You now have a whole bunch of open source software. Sinclair talked earlier about the way the digital platform has evolved here. We now have an environment where we can deliver cloud-based applications from Northern Ireland. And this allows companies here to target world markets and to do so from here. And it's much easier for us to be part of these distributed value chains that are forming in the cloud space. Sinclair's initiative looks to improve the data center infrastructure here, and a number of data centers are planned for Northern Ireland. So the applications that are developed here will be able to be deployed here, and using infrastructure like the Kelvin link to North America will be able to access huge markets, huge world markets. And it's very much our ambition that Northern Ireland will act as a global cloud node, serving world markets. If you're a business, what will the cloud do for you? Obviously, you have a world of choice because you can search and identify applications on the internet from any part of the world. You can purchase those applications also across the internet and consume them as a service using the software as a service model. They will probably cost less. There's certainly less hassle because you don't have to buy and install them on premise. And like I say, you can acquire world-class software solutions from here in Northern Ireland. So this is an interesting picture because it's a picture of a small village in County Antrim, which has given rise to one of the most successful companies in their field on the planet. That company is Chain Reaction, that are world leaders in the bicycle parts market. The e-commerce engine that drives those sales has been developed here. This is deployed on Northern Ireland infrastructure, and as I say, they are absolute world leaders. And this is a fabulous example for other companies wanting to do the same and exploiting the really excellent infrastructure and skills we have here to reach world markets. So, just some recommendations. The cloud is very much an evolving thing. It's not all or nothing. The cloud is not about one size fits all. I suppose my advice would be not to be too hasty. And you can use a combination of cloud and traditional software. You can start using that in areas that you are comfortable with, like for instance, like email or Hosted 365 from Microsoft. You always need to do your sums because the business model has changed from license to subscription model, and in some cases that can be quite it can be quite expensive. Like for instance, we looked at renting virtual servers on the internet, and we soon found that it would be actually cheaper over a time period to actually buy our own servers for what we actually needed to do. So you should always look at the finances involved. And I suppose you all also, as a business, need to understand the underlying business process. Because whatever software you buy needs to support those processes. Also, the cloud still needs to be managed. A number of the companies, particularly in Wispel, have tremendous skills in the area of cloud and can actually help you. So I suppose slowly does it, and like I say, if you're moving to the cloud, to do those applications that are easy, like something like hosted Office 365 or email, and then you could use other facilities like cloud backup, which are very inexpensive and easy to deploy, but which offer very tangible benefits. So I suppose don't stick your head in the sand like the ostrich here. If you are a developer, look at the cloud. Consider the platform as a service offerings that Mark mentioned, like Azure and Force.com. Not alone do these give you outsourced our development environments, but also they give you access to communities of other developers and also potential customers. You should consider infrastructure as a service, particularly for testing, is a particularly suitable application there. In this environment, you also need to become expert in digital marketing, and consider the complete software as a service model in terms of software delivery. Change is very much the law of life, as John F. Kennedy said. and and those who look only at the past or present are certain to miss the future. The future is definitely moving to the cloud, and there are big opportunities there for a regional economy like Northern Ireland. So I would very much encourage you to come along on Tuesday the 6th of September to the Pump House between 8:30 and 10, where we are launching the Whisple initiative, which is a business-to-business app store. That concludes my piece. Sinclair, back to you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Dennis. Thanks very much indeed, Mark. We'll be handing over the questions soon. I think we've got about 5 minutes. I think really insightful, interesting talks. Mark, I thought gave a good view with a deep, without getting too detailed and too lost in the detail of what the cloud's about. And I think for those of us who are looking to seriously invest in it, it's important to understand what it actually is, rather than the two-line short description of it, and therefore the actual benefits and the actual technology behind it. For people using it, to make sure that one is actually using suppliers who understand what they're talking about. As Mark said, Eircom, one of those suppliers, we're actually blessed in Northern Ireland. We've been the number of different service providers, all providing different types of cloud services on all the members of the telecom operator members on the DNI 2020 steering board. Offer these services in one way or another. So as users and as businesses, we've got the benefit of already having a healthy competitive market in which to go for, and that makes all of the people competing in. I think one of the observations we've made recently, and which really drove the creation of the DNI 2020 program, is that when one looks at infrastructures around the planet and in the regions and in areas and territories, say the size of Northern Ireland, there's nowhere that I have seen which is better to act as a platform and as a destination in which to develop cloud services than Northern Ireland, and there's nowhere where it's better to exploit the cloud to drive your business and achieve global reach than from Northern Ireland. I think there's a massive opportunity here for our technology companies. There's a massive opportunity for our businesses, but really it's up to us, and we have to grasp these now and make this vision, which appeared in this slide, really real in 2020. I don't think this is a long stretch. I think it's actually very realistic. So I've got a couple of questions. This one has just come in. Is there any sign of BT totally rolling out fast fibre optic broadband, as this hinders the whole cloud idea to many of us? To be fair, we already have business parks. We already have business parks which have fibre access already. And remember, there are a number of operators here. There's not just one. Any of the operators can choose to roll fibre out to the premises. The fibre to the cabinet solution at the moment, along with the equivalent from Virgin, actually gives speeds for consumers of cloud services, which I would say are probably not only adequate but better than is actually needed. For people involved in the development, and we're talking a little bit about this tomorrow, of content and delivering it up into the cloud, then yes, sometimes a fully synchronous service going up to 100 meg, 200 meg or beyond might be needed, and there are a number of business parks here. And I would also say that there's no business park, or if there are very few business parks in Northern Ireland, which for a small investment couldn't get fibre. And when I say small investment in this case, it's probably the price of the company car or a couple of company cars. So we're talking 10 to 20,000, can get fibre directly into the premises, and then it's a value judgment, but there'll be more announcements of parks which have actually reached that stage of being fully fibred in the new year in the north. So yeah, there are signs. The operators are doing it. It's already been done in some places. There's a business park up in Coleraine which has got fibre into it. A couple in Belfast, one in Oma that I know of. Several around the country which have got fibre into them. It has to be said that most of the businesses which are operating them in the moment don't use the fibre to that extent, but the opportunity is very much there. But Peter, I think it's a good question. Having listened to Peter Cochrane's, Peter Smith is the person who asked this question. Listen to Peter Cochrane's talk at the beginning of the week. Peter's first talk. Peter has always put this point of view that the end game here is fibre to the premises, but it's going to take a time to roll that out in an economic way. But having said that, we are the best connected urban rural region in Europe, and probably one of the best, if not the best, in the world if you take the whole territory. Kieran Bradley, you had a question for Eircom. It's actually quite a specific question to Mark, which was what proportion of what percentage of Eircom's business cloud is related? What percentage of Eircom's business is cloud related, and what are Eircom's projections for cloud availability going forward? Mark, do you want to answer that? Because I think that your answer is going to be fairly generic in many ways.
Generic is right. Yes, clearly, I wouldn't be comfortable at all talking in terms of hard numbers. But what I will say is that I suppose one of the motivating factors behind Eircom's move to be more readily identified in the cloud is that it isn't all that new to us. As I said, the idea of being able of making large capital investments and recouping them on a penny per minute basis is the whole. I suppose it is the mindset of the telcos, and that's why you see on a global basis a number of telcos who have made acquisitions to move into. They've bought cloud service providers in order to fast track their entry into that. So. As I say, in Northern Ireland, we have a number of software offers available. We have infrastructure as a service, as an available service, and then for specific contracts, we offer things like the Northern Ireland Civil Service, for example, have a cloud-based IP telephony service that is provided on a per user, on a per seat basis, so that both the technology and the idea of paying for it as you on a pay-per-use basis is there and is real.
Mark, can I ask you a question, supplement maybe to answering to Peter's question? In your experience, what kind of access speeds do you find businesses needing to be able to make effective use of the cloud? Because you've obviously met a lot of them.
Well, really, it's a bit of a piece of string question to a certain extent. If it's email, for example, that Dennis was talking about earlier on, the Microsoft email solution, that's very slow. That is. I think they say something like between 7 and 12K.
Okay, but say we get into some of the
per user.
Say into some of the heavier weight stuff.
Well, the heaviest weight is video. Ultimately, is the biggest user of bandwidth and of storage. So a lot of the people in the cloud, they talk about an exponential growth in data, and a lot of that is video. So having the networks around to support that, ultimately the 8 meg and above is kind of the benchmark that people are saying in terms of having a good quality video experience. The 100 meg and above is kind of what they're talking about in order to have something like 6 continuous streams of HD video into the home is at that kind of capacity. But most users are not looking for, in a professional context, most people are not looking for that kind of bandwidth. I want to be able to have, voice communication. I want to be able to have personal video conferencing. So just that HD camera on your laptop that allows you to communicate with other people. And the rest of it is just typically moving documents, moving files around. So so the bandwidth is a function of the multiples of people behind the link as opposed to what they're doing themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much indeed. I don't see any other questions on the list.
There is one here from Mark.
Oh, yes.
How can a company assure its customers sharing space in the public cloud that their data will remain confidential? And I suppose that's ultimately about getting, as I say, under the hood of what's in there. Being able to have a conversation with the service provider that they will tell you what technologies they have in place. There are technologies like for securing data at rest and data in motion, but ultimately it's a case of if you're going to a website and just seeing somebody's brand and somebody's logo, that may give you a certain level of comfort. But from my perspective, being able to have a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about and will give you the level of comfort you need is the only way that you're going to get that.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for staying on. We're having another session tomorrow lunchtime. It's targeted very much at the how can small, medium businesses use this? What's the environment? What's the setup that can encourage and get small businesses up and going? We've got Stephen Brennan coming up from Dublin, who's set up the Digital Hub down in Dublin. Actually, an interesting concept is the Digital Hub is one of these things which has been used to describe so many different things. In effect, it's in the Dublin version you'll be talking about. It's an incubation type centre to allow small businesses to get up and off the ground, who make use of digital technology in whatever way they make use of digital technology to make money. Which is increasingly applying into most businesses. We're also going to be talking a little bit about an applications area and apps for mobile phones, which has been a fruitful area for us in Northern Ireland in the past, and we hope it's going to be even more fruitful in the future as the number of mobile phones in the world users reaches the 4, 5, 6 and 7 billion mark, and the number of mobile devices in the world gets to the trillion mark, I think we were told yesterday. I've got Dennis sitting beside me. I can see the smile on his face already. So there's a massive market opportunity there for us to hit out at. We've also got Peter Cunningham from Cunningham Covers, who's going to be talking about how they, in a kind of traditional, a non-IT type business, as our bicycle spare parts, as our golf clubs, as our shifting vegetables and so forth, how they've used technology to really transform what was a very local farming-focused business into a global player in a range of different marketplaces, and hopefully create that aspiration and ambition amongst many of us to do exactly the same thing. Thanks very much for your time, and we'll close off there and hopefully see you tomorrow and indeed the day after. Bye.